Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I hope you are doing well. Today is Friday, May 16th, and I hope you had a great week. The indices ended on a positive note. They're all in green. After hours, however, we got news that Moody's downgraded the US debt. However, so the after hour price action was negative, but I don't really think that's necessarily anything to worry about. It's not like people didn't know the United States had a debt issue. And the fact of the matter is, it's very hard for the United States to default on its debt because it can print money. It's hard to default on debt when you have a money printer in your at your disposal. So I wouldn't really pay too much attention to the news that came out after hours. Uh, that being said, what I wanted to focus on in this live is Bitdeer's share price currently, or actually today, and the earnings. They reported earnings this week. Today, their stock was up 10%. I'm going to go over their presentation, their investors presentation that they had. And then also I'm going to go over a valuation for Bitdeer. So should be a very valuable live, inshallah. If you enjoyed these lives, then do leave a like. And if you haven't become part of our PIF membership, then do yourself a favor and become a member. We are making, alhamdulillah, a lot of money. Our picks are doing very well. And I think for the average, actually, I know because I surveyed the average PIF member is making multiple times what the membership costs. So, yeah, we'd love to have you as part of our community. If you look at just a quick account of crypto, Bitcoin is at 130,000. I mean, we have been after the jump that we experienced. We have been consolidating, which is to be expected. Doge is at 22 cents. All right, let's go to Bitdeer. So this is their investor presentation for Q1 25. If you look at the revenue, it's down, adjusted EBITDA down. And this is because this is a company, this has been a common theme for us lately, but it's a company that is in transition. It had a business model and now it's pivoting to a different business model focused on ASICs or the Bitcoin mining equipment and Bitcoin mining rigs. And so it is right now there are parts of its business that are basically dying out, and a new part that is reemerging. So I can't really put too much emphasis on the revenue EBITDA numbers that they reported in Q1 25 because I don't think it's representative of the business model that they've chosen for themselves. Although there is something about the income statement that I really like that I'd like to point your attention to. That being said, they have reported basically that they are on track with regards to the research and development that they are doing for their ASICs and the promise of a best in class Bitcoin miner that gets that only requires 5 joules per terahash. If you'll recall, when we were reviewing iOS Energy, we mentioned that they had the best in terms of fleet efficiency at 15 joules required per terahash. But Bitdeer thinks because it redesigned the ASICs, they think that they can actually pull off 5 joules required per terahash by the end of this year. And that would really put it basically on the bleeding edge of ASIC miner technology. So that is really what I was looking for. That, okay, this is still happening. The 5 joules per terahash, this is still happening. And because that's the most important input into my valuation model. That is their share of the total addressable market for Bitcoin mining equipment. And so that seems to be on track. And that was good to hear. Now, this is sort of the investor's most important slide, and it tries to address the question of total addressable market and how big is the ASIC market really for Bitcoin miners. So it has different assumptions here. So anywhere, and by the way, this is revenue, total addressable market between the years 2025 and 2027. So roughly 3 years. And so we are looking at assumptions from 750 exahash to 1750 exahash and a price per terahash between $15 and $25. And so they went, and I think these assumptions are all reasonable. And they went with sort of middle of the road assumptions, 1250 exahash, $17 per terahash. And that comes out to potential revenue of 21 billion, roughly 21 billion for this market over this 3-year period. And it thinks that if it can grab, let's say, 30% market share of this market, then 30% of the 2125 would be 6.4 billion. That's what would be Bitdeer's share of the market if it were to grab 30%. And remember, I think that they may have the best miner out there by the end of this year. And so I think 30% is not that far-fetched, especially considering the number of players in this space are few and far between. I mean, the biggest player, I believe, is Bitmain with their rigs. By the way, the CEO, founder of Bitdeer, was the co-founder of Bitmain, so he has that experience, which gives me more confidence in their ability to execute. And when you look at the technology that's their Sealminer, the name of their Bitcoin miner, their Sealminer boasts, it really is shaping up to be sort of a cut above everything else. If you look at the green dots, those are the efficiency improvements of other Bitcoin miners over time. And you can see that these green dots are kind of leveling off. The increases in efficiencies are leveling off. With Bitdeer, their miners are the orange dots. You can see that the efficiency levels are actually making big strides and are kind of in a league of their own. And this goes back to the fact that they've redesigned the ASICs and the Bitcoin miners from the ground up. And that enabled them to achieve efficiency levels that are just not available on the market. And you can see the level of improvement that they've been able to achieve has been quite remarkable. So the Sealminer and their pace as well. So the Sealminer A1 that was released in Q3 of 2024, that had an efficiency of 21.5 joules per terahash. The A2 Pro, released in Q4 2024, had efficiency between 15 and 16. The expected Sealminer A3 in Q2 of 2025 has an efficiency of 11 to 12 joules per terahash, and then expected in Q4 2025 is the 5.5 to 6 joules per terahash. And those are the orange dots that you see. So really the execution, the technology of this company has been quite remarkable and gives some merit to their claim that maybe we get 30% market share of this total addressable market. All right. And this is in addition to, so their ASICs business is in addition to their Bitcoin mining business, which they think will reach 40, in terms of self-hosted, 40 exahash by the end of the year. And in addition to this, so they have the ASICs, they have the Bitcoin mining, they also have an AI and high performance computing play. And they are expected to have basically 2,600, close to 2,700 gigawatts of power by the end of 2026. They should have close to 1,800 by the end of 2025. So this is actually a diversified play. This is not just Bitcoin mining that we see the potential for with this company. There's also the picks and shovels of Bitcoin mining. So Bitcoin mining itself has really tough margins, but the picks and shovels basically have 20 to 30% margins, which are much better. I'm talking here about net profit, not gross. So that's much better. It's a much better business. And also, what's good about it is that it's a constant business. So the miners, in order to stay relevant, you have to compete with all other miners on solving the problems of the Bitcoin network in order to mine Bitcoin. And therefore, if other miners are upgrading their fleet, and miners are constantly upgrading their mining fleets, then in order for a miner to stay relevant, they have to upgrade their fleet too. So there's constant demand for Bitcoin miners. It's never ending. Regardless, we're in a bull market, we're in a bear market. These miners have to compete in order to just stay in the game, basically. And that sort of should level out their revenue over time. And again, as I mentioned, the margins are a lot fatter with the mining rigs than Bitcoin mining itself. So that's a good position to be in. And they do have diversification in terms of geography. They're not all in a single place, in a single country. They have locations in the United States, Bhutan, in Norway. So they're all over the place, which is great. Strong balance sheet. They did take advantage of higher share price in December, raised a bunch of money. And something that I love to see, and especially when you have competent management, obviously not all R&D dollars are the same. If you look at Microsoft, for example, it spends more on R&D than Tesla, but there's a lot more innovation in Tesla. But if you look at the R&D in Bitdeer, for example, it tripled. The expense on R&D, research and development, tripled between 2024 and 2025, and I love to see that. That means the business is in fighting mode. That's what research and development. That's how I see it. And its stock price is like a spring that's being loaded up, and the more innovation the company produces, the more potential the stock eventually has, even if you have to go through a few quarters or even a few years where revenue numbers, income numbers may not be that flattering because there's so much being spent on research and development. So let's go to valuation here. So going back to the slide, this is the slide I'm referencing. And I'm just going to divide their assumption by 3 because we're doing 3 years, 25, 26, 27. So that's roughly of 400 exahash of total sold per year. And let's go with their assumption, $17 per terahash. That comes out to 6.8 billion revenue for the market. Assuming the Sealminer share is 30%, that comes out to around 2 billion. And assuming that the Sealminer revenue as a percentage of total revenue for Bitdeer itself, the company, because as I mentioned, there are a couple other lines of business, assuming the Sealminer contribution is 75%, that may be very generous, maybe less than that. But let's just assume that so that we're going with a conservative estimate here. That would put Bitdeer's total revenue at around 2.7 billion, that is, annually. And this should happen, by 2027 latest. Now, a conservative conservative price to sales ratio for Bitcoin miners around 2. However, uh, that's because they're Bitcoin mining and the profit margins for Bitcoin mining are a lot smaller. I think if this company proves itself as a player in AI and high performance computing, as well as ASICs, they may command a much bigger price to sales ratio, especially if it has the growth numbers to back that. But that would put the market cap conservatively at around 5.4 billion. Now, if we went for the more bullish price to sales ratio of 4, for example, and by the way, Bitcoin miners, they trade between 1 and 5 price to sales. So we went with 4 as our bullish assumption. That would put us at around 11 billion market cap. Using a discount rate of 10% and assuming that this valuation is achieved, let's say 2027, then the present value today would be around 5.8 billion. Shares outstanding at 196 million. That puts the price per share at around $29.50. Now, for my PIF members, I always like to sandbag things even more. I like to have a margin of safety. And so definitely, our target price is on our watch list. If you're asking me why are our target prices, less than this, that's because I like to leave a cushion, a margin for error. But this is, I think, a very reasonable valuation for this company. So close to 30. Now we're up 10% today, but after the 10%, we're at 15. So that's my view of Bitdeer after its most recent earnings. And that's how I view the valuation for this company. With that being said, let's go to questions. Salamat Muhammad. We don't discuss individual positions typically in terms of buying and selling, but follow along. You saw what we did. Congrats to PIF members. We doubled our money on LifeMD in the last month. I think more than doubled, actually. So congrats to everyone. And when you take profits, then as we did today, when you take profits, then say Alhamdulillah and just try not to think about, what's going to happen, or just be happy with the profits. Never be down when you're taking profits. Make sure we always have our greed in check, inshallah. Nail says, Assalamu alaikum, Rakaan. Alaikum salam, Nail. Nice to see you. Not sure if you are realizing how much good you guys are doing for PIF members. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you for giving us a chance to improve our financial situations. Well, Jazakallah khair. I really appreciate you writing that. Merck is really not. I really like our dividend portfolio picks. I think they're really solid picks. I may have chosen the best 4 on the market. So, Salamat Rashad, nice to see you. Trade in 1-to-1 backed gold is halal or haram? Not sure what's that. Salam Zuhair, nice to see you. Yes, I speak Arabic, Patrick. I don't know what your question is referencing, brother. Salam Rakaan. Please share some details on ROD. Okay. Nothing to share. Assalamu alaikum, brother. There are some, let's just, keep in mind, this is a public live and our portfolio is private. So I do like to provide as much, free value as possible, but I also don't want, PIF members to feel like they aren't getting anything exclusive. So there's a balance there that we need to strike. My own channel says, Assalamu alaikum, brother. Your views on CoreWeave. Actually, it's on, like, if you see, like, things that I'm looking at right now. I'm watching the stock, and it's up 22% today. It was up massively this week. Every day I was looking at it, it was up double digits, percentage-wise. But balance sheet is terrible. Although they do have a good dynamic in terms of financing, and sometimes I think the repayment of debt, as per their CEO, should happen very quickly given the investments that they are making. And today's jump was a product of Nvidia increasing its ownership stake in the company. So I am, though, when I look at something like CoreWeave, I think about some of our plays like Iris Energy, Bitdeer, and so on. And I think to myself, well, if one of these companies can pull off an agreement with a hyperscaler, then I think it could do very well. So what CoreWeave is inspiring me to think of is some of, because I think it's basically fully valued at this point. And perhaps I'll do a deep dive on it, but I think it's fully valued at this point. But what I don't think is fully valued are some of the high performance computing AI plays that are not fully formed, like Bitdeer, for example. How are we expecting to reach 300 shares? Well, you'll see. I do have a plan. Alhamdulillah for the PIF community. Thanks, Hassan. I really appreciate that. Inshallah. Marvel. Maybe I'll take a look myself. I haven't covered PFE. Alhamdulillah. Thanks, Rashad. Really appreciate that. Thank you all for tuning in. Leave a like. I know the live today is quite late. Leave a like so other people see it. I really appreciate you tuning in, and make sure to say Alhamdulillah for everything and enjoy your weekend. Make sure to do that. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.